Hey, this is Les Warner. You're listening to the Nothing Shocking podcast.
We're putting the band back together.
The numbers all go to 11.
I'm talking about bands that rock. Led Zeppelin. What about Sabbath? AC/DC. Motorhead.
Does that mean it's louder? Isn't it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
We're not worthy! We're not worthy!
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
I get up off the ground and raise my head. Days like this, think I should be dead. One for Satan, two for me. Let's cheat the devil, it's fun, don't you agree?
Welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I'm your co-host, Jeff Untied. With me in Dog Bowl Studios is my co-host,
Coach Nez.
You can find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Libsyn or any pod catchers. Visit our Facebook page or find us on Twitter at NoShockPod.
You can also find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Rock Rage Radio every Tuesday night at 10 p.m. Central Time. We would like to thank Bob Zerl for his technical contributions. Our sponsor is Ragged Records, located in downtown Rock Island, Illinois, soon to be coming back to downtown Davenport, Iowa. We would also like to thank the Hong Kong Sleepover for letting us use their music for our intro and bumper ending. And our guest tonight is
Les Warner of The Cult.
And Bow Wow Wow. He also has done session work for Sham 69, Here and Now, Johnny Thunders, The Waterboys, Julian Lennon, and the list keeps going on. And what a great interview he was.
Yeah. He joined The Cult on the Love Tour in 1985 and recorded the album Electric with them. And
if you grew up in the 80s, the Electric album was very inspirational to me. It really set up a tattoo of music in my mind, I guess, if you want to say. Favorite song off of the Electric album for me, Jeff, would be Wildflower. What about you?
Probably Love Removal Machine.
Love Removal Machine, yeah. I would have to say, for me, it would be Wildflower, Little Devil, and then Love Removal Machine. But the entire album just kicks ass. So I for me to narrow it down to those three, it's kind of tough to do, but I'm going to do it anyway. So
now he's getting into the session drumming. He's started his own studios, got his own website where you can hire Les Warner.
And he said it took a large portion of his house for him to do that, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
it was a fun interview.
It was. So before we get into this interview, what have you purchased as far as tangible music right now that you can touch and feel and read and listen to all at the same time?
I picked up the CD copy of Pearl Jam's MTV Unplugged.
Oh,
it's long overdue being released.
Okay, so I'm a little confused about this because MTV Unplugged were notorious for releasing those unplugged shows on CD, or I think they were even on cassette, and maybe they were on vinyl. I don't know. Anyway, are you telling me they just now released the Pearl Jam Unplugged?
Yes. Yeah, I don't know what the major delay was. I mean, as far as the Pearl Jam album, it was right after the 10. I think it's got their the 5. I was trying to pull it up so I don't mess up the name titles, but it's got the one non-album track, State of Love and Trust, and one of my favorite songs by Pearl Jam off the single soundtrack, and it it came out at the time they recorded it. They were fresh on their promoting the 10 album, and maybe they didn't want to compete with that was still in the height of its success, but. And I think it only has 5. That's the part that I guess is a little disappointing. Is it's only 5 songs, or there's actually 7. Pretty short. It's like an EP, and so waiting this long to release it, I guess as a fan, I was hoping that maybe they'd have some archive acoustic songs that maybe it wasn't MTV Unplugged, but you could add a couple of extra bonus tracks that from other acoustic shows or something to kind of to reward the fans and fill it out.
And that's what is kind of confusing to me with the format of MTV Unplugged from back in the early 90s is that some of the performances were released almost immediately, within a year after they were performed. We know Alice in Chains. Nirvana's got released 2, I believe.
One from MTV Unplugged, Kiss.
Yeah, right. So, the most memorable one for me is the Alice in Chains one, but there was multiple albums, live albums from MTV Unplugged that were released. I'm so surprised that MTV did not release that in the heyday of Pearl Jam's success, but whatever.
But as a completist, I guess, fan, I had to, even though I probably have it on like bootleg copy, I had to purchase it.
And did this just get released?
Yeah, this last week.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm, for me, you're much more of a Pearl Jam a purist and know more about it than I do. But the album that I purchased this week was another Metallica bootleg from the 80s, The Horsemen of the Apocalypse.
Nice.
And so if you've listened to our podcast, past episode, I think it was that we just released, or 2 episodes ago, right now I'm into collecting the 80s bootlegs from the Metallica heyday, and anywhere in between from the Kill 'Em All to and Justice for All, and anything in between there. So that's what I'm on. Unfortunately, these bootleg copies on vinyl are very costly, so I'm not able to go out and purchase them at will. And then if you can find a copy of one online, if you're like on a place like eBay or any other auction site, you better be able to get it for a reasonable price, because if not, the sales price are just it's just crazy. So, but anyway, enough talk about our purchases of the week. Let's get to our interview with Les Warner.
Good night.
Good night. Well, welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. Les, I want to introduce you to my co-host, Jeff Untied.
Hey, Les, how's it going tonight?
Hey, Jeff, what's going on, mate?
Well, hey, thank you for the correspondence and your willingness to participate. We're excited to have you tonight.
Of course, of course. Can you hear me good?
Oh, yeah, we can hear you just great.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'm here and I'm ready.
All right, man. Fantastic. So, first and foremost, let's talk about your new drum sessions and your studio that you built from at your home. Let's talk a little bit more about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, everyone's got to pretty much reinvent themselves, during this time. And I was doing a lot of shows and flying out everywhere and doing my thing. And I would use other studios, to do sessions in New York and, all over, And, of course, because of the pandemic, everyone was shut down. So basically, I got a quick loan and I put my studio together. I spoke to DW Drums. They gave me a nice kit, really cool drum kit. And my girlfriend was good enough to let me take over a whole living room and side room. Yeah.
Fantastic.
I know. I'm pretty blessed, actually. I'm pretty lucky. So, and she's got a fantastic room. The room is amazing. It's just, it's got a great brick fireplace in it. And I don't know if you know much about drum rooms or anything like that, but the more, the more sort of like messed up the walls are, as far as, angles. The more angles there is, the better, Mm-hmm. And I got a really high ceiling. It's awesome. It sounds amazing. I've had a producer in here, and he said it sounds like one of the biggest rooms in LA. So anyway, I'm rambling, but basically what I did is I put the money into the studio. I revamped my website, and I'm just about to do a campaign to let everybody basically know as far as I can, anywhere in the world that I can actually do drum tracks for them, for their record, for their projects.
Yeah, very nice.
Fantastic. I'm going to take one more question before I hand it off to Jeff. But when you're planning on doing something like that, and I guess maybe you're taking an existing structure and you're schematically trying to put a studio in, what was the challenging process like to create something like this for yourself?
Well, I mean, again, the room was fantastic. So it was a matter of just saying to her, my girlfriend, well, you can't really have that over there, I mean, we need to get that out of the room, you know what I mean? And we're talking about a family, a daughter, no, I'm just kidding. I mean, she has all these pictures and stuff, and and that That's got to go, that vase, because it could be damaged. You're going to hate me for it, but, so moving furniture around, getting stuff out of the room. And then the other challenge really basically is my control room, is that because we're right near a main road. So I've really got to make sure we don't hear the traffic go by when we're doing vocals. You know what I mean? Because I have a beautiful mic, Neumann mic, and it picks up everything. So there's a few challenges, but we got it done.
Neighbors are far enough away; they're not complaining about your drum sounds, are they?
Well, the great thing about it is the front room where the drum kit is right bang in the middle of the whole house, and the house is really long. On one side I got my control room and a kitchen. On the other side we've got a bedroom and a bathroom. So there's a real big distance between the other houses.
Oh, very good. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's one of those. All the rooms are on the first floor. There's no second floor, so it's very, very wide.
Absolutely. You kind of talked about the pandemic. It's been a struggle for artists, non-artists, everybody right now. As far as what you can foresee right now, you talked about you were doing fly-out dates before this. For shows, I guess you were maybe possibly doing Weekend Warrior stuff. How has this pandemic affected you, I guess maybe on a creative sense of things?
Well, in a creative sense, it's actually made me more creative because I'm writing and working in my studio because I don't really leave the house much, I got guitar player Rowan Robertson coming over who played with Dio on his first record. Mm-hmm. He comes over, we actually write some stuff, and we have a singer in India. Actually, this guy is fantastic. Rowan found him on YouTube, and he's amazing, this singer. His name is Gurish, and we've been actually writing music and sending it to him, and he's been sending vocals back. So in that way, it's pretty creative. It's just a good thing. In the other way, it's very strange because, not being on stage, playing in front of like 5,000, 10,000 people, which is where musicians really get their jollies from. I mean, it is strange. It's like being a fish out of water,
Yes,
and
exactly.
I heard something the other day. They were talking about on NPR. They were talking about all these theatrical people in Vegas for the Circus Soleil shows. And a lot of them are hopefully not, but a lot of them apparently are like going to drugs and stuff. Artists are very, delicate people. And if we're not getting what we do, we're not fulfilling what we're on the planet for, you tend to sort of go for stuff that gives you the same feeling or sort of a sense of the same feeling. And that's pretty much drugs and alcohol, So it affects people in different ways. You know what I mean? And it's a problem. It's an awful situation right now. And I don't see it getting better for a long time.
Yeah, neither do I. Yeah. Go ahead, Jeff.
So when did you get your start in drumming? What made you pick drums as the instrument, and how has your drumming changed over the years?
Well, that's a lot of questions right there, but I'll go for the first one first. But I was brought up in a middle working class family in London. I was born in Fulham, which was a sort of very London suburb, right up in town. And, it was that you see those old pictures of black and white pictures of like kids with dirty faces. That was pretty much me, my friend. And his brother, my friend's brother, was a drummer, and we all looked up to him and, wow, it's awesome, And then I sort of picked drums and my friend picked guitar. And it pretty much started from that. Nice. We wanted to do our thing. And then we moved away from him. And then my dad came home one day. He used to go to the pub every Saturday. And he would come home and he would bring like a cardboard box full of like 45s, records. and in front of the records was candy, chocolate. So I really feel like my dad weaned me into it. You know what I mean? In a way. So, but I've always, since that point, since I was like 11, 12, I knew what I wanted to be. I knew what I wanted to do, and I wanted to be a rock star. And play my drums. I always loved drums. And, you know, over the years, I mean, the more people that you play with, the more situations that you come in front of you, the more you learn. You know, you never stop learning. You know what I mean? When I was in New York, a friend of mine called me up and said, hey, I got this Irish band that wants me to play with them, but I can't do it. I'm on Broadway. I can't do it. And that was my first time playing Irish music. And I know it sounds weird, but it's very, very, very different to what I was used to. And doing those 2/4 beats and doing all that jigs and reels and stuff, it really opened up a whole new avenue of playing. And to be honest with you, if I hadn't done that Irish gig, I probably wouldn't have played with Bow Wow Wow. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So all these different styles and all these different bands and musicians you play with, you just got to, you know, really learn from all of them.
I want to kind of take a technology angle question for you here. You know, with technology constantly changing and advancing in the music industry, we see more and more artists recording entire albums from their tiny to-go studios in their house. Are you still a fan of getting into the traditional studio from a remote location and recording music the old-fashioned way, or are you more now? Since you have a studio in your home, but are you a big fan of new technology where you're able to email and Dropbox stuff to a bandmate on the other side of the world?
Well, I mean, again, you got to reinvent yourself. I mean, I would love to be in a great band that would go to a house and rehearse and do pre-production and record an album would be great. But it's been so long since I've done that. You know, I mean, God. That was the old way of doing it. And, you know, you ask someone like Joe Walsh about it, and he'll say, you know, back in the day, you know, it was the mistakes. It was the human element to everything that was so wonderful that would give you the magic, you know?
Yep.
And I think from technology, that's lost a lot. I mean, Trent Reznor, he uses technology, but he's a genius, and he puts feel into it. So as long as you can do that, as long as you can put feel into it, it's great. But a lot of music today is just it's disgusting. I hate it. You know.
Well, you know, and that being said, I know from having children myself that are teenagers in their early 20s that there are some artists out there that are creating albums and song that are really not artists at all. They are a product of the technology, and they really have no business making music because they're not artists at all. It's all computer generated. What are
right?
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you know, you hear about these artists now. You know, iHeartRadio. There it is. the devil. iHeartRadio. Right. There's a lot of elements in the music business now that really are completely destroying it, like iHeartRadio, like Spotify, and then who's the mafia people? You know, the ones that do the live show, Live Nation. Right. All of those, right there, 3 of them, right there, destroying anything remotely to do with great musicianship and stuff. You know, and they're destroying the way that there was money to develop bands. There was to develop artists. Now they have, like, you got an artist who's big on YouTube, okay, to sing or whatever, and then they get a lot of likes or something, thousands of likes, and then suddenly they're in an office or a studio with 5 writers. They have like a writing team now. You know what I mean? And it's all about the business. It's all about, okay, these 5 people that are in this room are going to write you a hit song. You know?
Yep. Absolutely.
And that, I hate the model now. The guy from Spotify, he is the devil. And I mean, you know, it's awful.
Let's talk a little bit pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
You live in Vegas, and I've talked to artists about Vegas and other scenes, and we've talked to artists about the LA Strip scene from the 80s and the New York rock and roll scene into New Jersey, and their dying scenes. And some of the artists have expressed that they felt like this. Obviously, this is before the pandemic started. Was that maybe there was a possibility that Vegas might be the next spot for rock and roll to be rediscovered again? Do you have that feeling there, living there, that maybe rock and roll might have a renaissance in Las Vegas?
Not really.
Oh.
No, I mean, I'll be honest with you. Vegas is a cabaret town. I'm in Cabaretville. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now saying that, there's a lot of great artists coming out of Europe. There's some fantastic bands. I mean, awesome stuff. I mean, it is very simulated. It's very like. Sorry about that. The guys play, but they really post production. They really tear it apart. Quantize all the drums, and it's a different way. It's a different way of doing it. It's a different thing now. I don't think rock and roll is really ever gone or coming back. It's just mingling there. It's there, but again, because you can't really, it's hard to develop anything. You don't really get these great bands coming out. You know what I mean? Look at that band that sounds like Zeppelin. They didn't develop their own sound. They just sound like Zeppelin. They're revamping everything.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Yeah. But because there's no $100,000, they can't sign a record deal for $100,000 and go to a farm somewhere and develop something of their own. There ain't those budgets anymore, so they got to do it, on their own.
Yep. At this point in your life, you're kind of known to be a hired gun musician for many big time artists. Do you prefer being labeled as the hired gun on the drums, or the / studio guy, or how do you view yourself in the music business these days?
Well, I'm just happy to be working. I'm just grateful that I do get the phone calls. I'm grateful that I can play with some great bands. I mean, I got into I've actually been playing bass in a Tom Petty tribute band, and it was a challenge to me to play bass, but it's really helped my drumming a lot. But playing great songs is important. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't, if LA Guns called me up and said, "Hey, you come play with us," I would be like, "Oh, I don't know if I can." I just hate your music, your songs. I've been on the bill with them before, and I listened to them. I'm like, oh my God, it's awful. So I'd rather go and make money playing in a Tom Petty tribute band than playing with LA Guns or someone like that. Those cheesy '80s bands, I hate them. I never got into the hair bands in the '80s. Obviously, I got into Van Halen, of course. They were the real great ones, you know what I mean? But there was a lot of mush going on, Quiet Riot, I hate. They got their career from that band Slade in England. You know what I mean? It's a revamp of that band.
Go ahead, Jeff.
All right. You mentioned earlier about doing some session work. Is there anything you can tell us about some sessions you currently worked on?
Well, I mean, I get a lot of different stuff from social media. A band would contact me, and they would, say, "Hey, play on our record and stuff." They send me the files, and I'd load it in. I learn the song, I record the track, send it back to them, and I seem to be getting a very good result. Everyone seems to be really happy. It's like I get out of bed, turn my studio on, and I start warming up, start getting ready to do a track. It's sort of a factory over here, really, in a nice way, in a good way,
It wouldn't be who of me to ask you an electric question. So,
sure.
This album is like so influential on my life that it's kind of like I don't even know where to start. So I'll just start here. So that album was an exciting and different for myself and for my high school friends back in the late '80s. Middle to late '80s. To this day, that album feels timeless. and it feels like it still holds the test of time. What was the writing and recording process on that album that makes it hold relevance today, that it was as strong as today than it was back in 1988?
Well, there was a few different elements. We actually, when we came off the road from doing the Love album, off all the live stuff, we went into pre-production with Steve Brown, who recorded the Love album. And we went into a studio in Oxford, Richard Branson's studio. And we went in there to record. We got everything set up, the drum kit, and I played to a click, and we were multi-track and everything. And it wasn't sounding good. It was sounding like there was too many guitars. Sonically, it was sounding really rough. So then we recorded all the instrumentation, and Billy and Ian weren't happy with it. So they were suggested to go to New York and talk to Rick Rubin about mixing the record. Okay. Mm-hmm. Rick Rubin took one listen to it. I'm like, nah, I'm not going to mix this record. But if you want to do a real rock and roll record, I'll do that. So they decided to can all the stuff that was recorded. And I got the phone call just before Christmas, 87, with redoing the album. Come out to New York. They flew me out to New York. And then we started in the studio. Electric Ladyland started that day recording. And it was very, very different. Because right at that time, all the records that were coming out at that time were like Billy Idol's record and Motley Crue, and everything was full of reverb, and everything was like crazy reverb, crazy drums that were compressed, and machine-like, and you know what I mean? And Rick Rubin is a purist. And so basically it was like we threw away all the metronomes and all that stuff. Les, you're not going to be working to a click. We're not going to be doing any drop-ins. It's just as it is. Whatever you do is going to be on the record, which was like unbelievable amount of pressure. I thought I was scot-free. I thought I'd done all my drums, back in London. And we had to redo it in about a week. We had to redo all the drums and the backing tracks in 1 week. And it was very, very stressful. And I think because of that stress, I think it comes across in the drum tracks. The stress, the urgency, it comes across as urgency. And I think that's one of the aspects of that record, it being sort of how it is, and how pure it is. Basically it was like an early AC/DC record to me. That's what it sounds like. And there's some stuff on there I actually hate. Some of the drum rolls are like, oh my God, really? Why couldn't I do that again? You know what I mean? And but I get it, and I think, and it was also very dry. There was no reverb on anything. It was just a room sound and everything. You know what I mean? Yes. So, and it stuck out like a sore thumb at the time. None of the records were out there were dry as that. It was all super high production. And this record was the opposite. And I think that's one of the reasons it really stuck out, and it went triple platinum,
And the relevance of the sound of that album today, it sounds like, it holds as much as importance today than it did when it was first released. And as far as the writing process of the songs that were on there, how much involvement did you have with that? And some of the songs feel like, when I listen to them, man, that was a really complicated song to write. Do you have that same feeling, or not really?
Well, Ian and Billy were the guys writing everything. They really didn't want anyone else writing, because they wanted to take all the money and all the glory. So we didn't really have we put our 2 cents in, me and Jamie, and I did my drum roll, my drum grooves and stuff. But the writing was really down to them, and they didn't even give us the opportunity to get involved with that. And the stuff to me wasn't really that complicated. a little bit, but I think that was Rick Rubin. Rick Rubin had a lot to do with how the arrangements went in the studio. So it really was right there. You walk into the studio and bang, you're rewriting the bloody song. You know what I mean? I mean, we did arrangements before for the Love album, but we tore those songs apart and regurgitated them the way Rick Rubin wanted it. You know.
As far as go ahead,
yeah.
I'm sorry for interrupting you.
No, it's okay.
As far as when the album was completed, satisfaction level, how satisfied were you with the end product of that album?
When they sent me the cassette, when I got the cassette from the management, I'm like, oh, what's this? Is this is the demos? What is this? Where's all the reverb? Again, because everyone at that time was transfixed onto this big reverb and big drums, huge gated drums and stuff, and none of it was there. So everyone was sort of waiting for this big mix, of the album, and it just wasn't. And I didn't really get it until I was in this club in Toronto. I was in the toilet, half drunk, and I'm hearing this drum sound in the main room, and it was me, electric, and it sounded huge in its own right. It sounded just really real. And it didn't need all the reverb. It didn't need all that gating and stuff to make it big, So then I really got it at that point. I didn't get it at first.
Interesting. Go ahead, Jeff.
What's your favorite place you've ever played live?
Well, I mean, my favorite ever gig I ever did. Well, if it ain't with the Cult, I played with Spinal Tap in New York City, the Beacon Theater. And I'm still alive today. I don't do any I don't do any gardening or anything like that. I can't do gardening. And I'm one of the surviving drummers from Spinal Tap.
Awesome.
But the best gig I ever did with the Cult was in Paris with opening up for David Bowie. 90,000 people.
Wow.
Yeah, that was pretty intense.
Yeah. I have one last question for you, and I always have one curveball question for you before we let you go for the evening. So,
okay.
Are you ready?
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, I'm ready.
So, growing up in Fulham, England, Premier League soccer is king over in England. Are you a Fulham FC supporter?
No, I'm a Chelsea supporter.
Oh, yes. That's so much.
Because we were close to Chelsea. So you either a Fulham supporter or a Chelsea supporter. So Fulham was so awful that you just have to go to Chelsea.
Made Eric's day today.
Yeah, you just made my day, and I was curious because Fulham has played that relegation thing the last few years, so I had all kinds of questions for you about ownership and relegation. So I guess I don't have to worry about that anymore. So let's talk.
No, you don't. No.
Let's talk a little bit about the Blues real quick, if you don't mind.
No, of course. I mean, yeah. I mean, do you know my history with the Blues?
I do not.
Well, I played with Peter Green from Fleetwood Mac. You remember he started his whole career with the Blues.
Yes.
I did a year with him, and actually, blues is a big part of my education as a drummer, because when I was sort of 17 and out in the clubs in London, at that time in London, it was all R&B. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not talking about R&B like now. I'm talking about rhythm and blues. In the bars and in the pubs, they had bands like Dr. Feelgood and Chicken Shack and the Blues Band, and it was all 12-bar blues. So my first band I joined was Johnny Mars and the Seventh Son. This big black guy dressed like Jimi Hendrix with a great big harmonica in his mouth. And we did all these shuffles. It was awesome. And it was my first professional gig.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah. And then I played with the Cobras, which was another band that was made up of all the bands, all the other blues bands in London. What's that band now? The Blues Breakers and all that. And that was great as well. Again, it was very much the shuffle. And I think that really gave me my groove. That was my learning my groove, because a lot of people tell me that I have the same sort of groove as Phil Rudd from AC/DC, that like bounce like the, you know what I mean? And I think I really did get it from that, playing that blues music.
Oh, fantastic!
Yeah, that's cool.
Now, let's talk about the Chelsea Blues. Are you going to talk? Are you talking about? Have you been following Chelsea at all this year?
To be honest, I don't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I haven't. I'm more into tennis. To be honest with you, I love tennis.
Okay. Well, I guess we won't talk about Chelsea either.
I play twice a week. I love playing tennis. So, I used to play soccer when I was a kid, you know, and my position was left back in the dressing room.
I just caught that right now.
I used to be frightened of the ball, you know. Hit me in the leg. Damn, a piece of leather really hurt, you know. And I think it's a great sport, you know. 12 hairy ass men kicking a piece of leather around the field just so they could get in the shower together after. I think it's wonderful.
Well, that's all the questions that we have for you tonight. I want to thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And you know, I don't know if you remember or not. A couple of years ago, I tried to get you on the podcast, but I had a family illness and I had to cancel at the end of the last minute. So it's a couple of years later. We're glad we finally got you on the podcast. It's been fantastic.
It was my pleasure. And if I could do a little promo thing here, like
if
absolutely. People want to get hold of me, they can go to my website, leswarner.com. And then they can email me or phone me from there about doing drum tracks or any projects.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Yeah, we'll post that too within the on the podcast website as well. So.
Oh, great.
All right.
Well, thank you again. And anytime, you know, just let me know anytime.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, sometimes we get guests to come on to do an intro with us for the next episode with somebody, and maybe you might know that person, and we can have you come on and do some little chit chat. Does that work?
That'd be awesome, and hopefully they'll owe me money. Kill two birds with one stone, you know?
Yeah, for sure. So before I let you go, I just want to let you know that this will probably be out about 2 weeks or so, and then when it's ready, I'll send you the link. Does that sound good?
That'd be awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thanks, Les. Have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Everybody Everybody pulls the plug and says their last goodbyes. Move to the sunshine, fight the grip of nights. If they ever take from you, then you plug out both their eyes.